if we already have parasites and we add stressors to that, like a pandemic, listening to the news, just having to be isolated in our homes, all that kind of stuff, it just adds to the stress, and that adds to what the parasites are doing. It's kind of like they're having a party. The more stressed out we get, and a pandemic certainly has stressed us out more.
Hello and welcome to the Wellness Trinity podcast, where we interview top holistic experts and bring you natural solutions for modern day wellness. Let's get started with your host, Dr. Jacqueline.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for joining the Wellness Trinity podcast. I'm Dr. Jacqueline from thewellnesstrinity.com, where we provide natural solutions for modern day wellness. Today, I have a special guest on the show. Her name is Maribeth Baxter, and we are going to discuss how parasites affect our emotional and physical well-being. What we discuss in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. What you do with the information is to be used at your discretion, as the recommendations are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. So just a little announcement before we get started. Cellcore Biosciences has sponsored this podcast and this episode, and they create supplements that work, and they restore hope and health. That is who they are. And I've been telling you guys week after week, they have changed my clients' lives, and I am so excited that I get to be a part of their team now. Maribeth, who I have on the show, she's also on their team and has an incredible story with how they've just revolutionized her health journey as well. And so we're excited to spread the message and just get this out broader and help other practitioners be able to do what we do with our clients. So if you're a practitioner, let us know and we'll help you guys get signed up to also do the products and protocols with your clients. And if you're the general public and you're curious, what is this detox about, then you can visit thewellnesstraining.com/cellcore-detox. So Maribeth, I spoke to her a couple weeks ago, and I was going through a little bit of craziness with parasites and a client. We're going to get into that. I want to let you know first that Maribeth is a chronic illness wellness coach with an emphasis on the effects of disease on emotional health. Her joy is coaching people how to support their bodies so they can respond to wellness. She includes mind-body nourishment coaching tools to enhance healing from the soul to the cell. Wellness is about our personal growth as well as our cells, mitochondria, and diet. No doubt, chronic illness is a ride. The challenges are intense. Her coaching includes getting to the hidden wisdom and miraculous adventure of this ride. Maribeth, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So, as I had just mentioned, you actually just showed up at the perfect time. I don't even know if we really had much of a conversation before that, but I was going through a little bit of craziness with the client and feeling just a little defeated because I'm trying to help this client and they're lashing out on me, and I just felt really hurt. And I'm just being honest with you guys. Like, we have emotions too. As practitioners, we go through things, even though as strong as we might seem on the outside. And so I don't even know how we got connected, but somehow you just called me, I think, at the right time where I just needed to hear some words of encouragement during this time. Now, with your experience, how do you think people are responding to this coronavirus, with the situation with the quarantine and everything that's going on? How do you think parasites play a role in this?
A lot of people are being very fearful. There's a lot of hysteria going on. People are not dealing very well with it. I think the people who have been chronically ill for a long time have some skills, have a skill set that we're actually able to adapt to this a little bit better. But it's the parasites that just seem to get people riled up over a full moon, especially. If we already have parasites and we add stressors to that, like a pandemic, listening to the news, just having to be isolated in our homes, all that kind of stuff, it just adds to the stress, and that adds to what the parasites are doing. It's kind of like they're having a party. The more stressed out we get, and a pandemic certainly has stressed us out more.
Okay, so parasites basically make us more stressed, to put that all in a nutshell.
Yes, they do.
Okay. Now,
Physically and emotionally.
I'm sorry?
Physically and emotionally.
Yeah, yeah. So why don't we break down first, like when you were dealing with your parasite load, how were you feeling?
I have never felt worse in my entire life. Physically, it was a challenge. It felt like having the flu times 100. It also emotionally got to me. The anxiety, the emotional stress. It was completely overwhelming. And there were times that I remember that I felt like I had to sit on my hands just to be still. And I know you can't do it, but it felt like I had to sit on my lips just so that I wouldn't lash out at people because it got stirred up so much.
Yeah, yeah. And it feels like you can't control it, right?
Absolutely. Like you have no control of your emotions at all.
Yeah, yeah. I remember when I was younger and feeling the same way where ever since I was young, actually, I would write goals for the year, or maybe some years I might have skipped it. But sometimes I would have a word that would pop up. And I remember when I was in high school, just really wanting to get control of my emotions. And at that time, I wasn't definitely not where I'm at now. I barely scratched the surface with anything with health and wellness, if at all. So, I mean, unfortunately, I wasn't really raised with the most healthiest diet and things like that. And so I felt like an emotional wreck. I mean, there's obviously other things going on probably that could have fed into that. But now I look back and what you're talking about, I mean, man, if I was in high school and I cleansed my body out of all those parasites, I it would have been so much easier to recover from those emotional craziness that I was going through.
It would have been tons easier had we known back then. But if you think about it, I mean, when you get parasites inside of you and emotionally you can't control all of your reactions, and then you get frustrated at yourself, and then you lash out at others because you're frustrated at yourself, and then they get upset, and it just turns into a big mess. And usually it's just the parasites. We've got to get them out of us, get us cleansed of them so that we have healthier bodies. And then our minds think more clearly.
Yes, yes, our minds definitely think more clearly. And I know you're very spiritual and you're definitely into emotions and working on that from like, what do we feed our mind? I mean, it's very important. What are we meditating on? But I mean, I just love how you can tie that aspect in because I don't think it's talked about enough of how these parasites and other pathogens affect our mental health. And it's obviously a huge problem nowadays, right?
It is. If you think about how many people are on antidepressants or other medication to alter their emotional health, if they would go after the parasites, I'm very curious how many people could actually get off of antiparasite, or I'm not saying that right, antidepressants, if they had done the work on the parasites first. So I personally think there's a connection, and I think a lot of people could get off of some medication if they worked on the parasites.
Yeah, yes. So let's tie this back into when I had talked to you a few weeks ago about feeling a little bit discouraged about this client that was kind of lashing out on me. And I don't want to play the victim role. It just what happened, and I was feeling a little sensitive because of it. Um, and your first reaction was so naturally, well, it's the parasites. And of course, it was right around the full moon, and they get stirred up around the full moon, right? Actually, why don't we expand on what is the full moon doing? Like, why are these parasites uh, especially more aggravated, or what is going on during this full moon?
Well, during the full moon, they become more active. I think that's also when they are reproducing, so they're laying eggs. It just taps on our body more because they're busy doing their thing. So when they're more active, it feels like it's sucking energy out of us. So we don't have as much energy. We don't feel as well. And then a lot of people have huge issues with anger during the full moon. If you look at the statistics, crime rate goes up during full moons. So people are just more out of control. The anger, the anxiety during that time when a person has parasites, it feels out of control, and then people act out of control.
So I wonder how many people know this. I mean, a lot of people know about the full moon and the crazy people come out during the full moon and that idea. But to know that there's this connection between the full moon and the parasites being all stirred up and laying eggs and causing people to lash out and act really badly and really poorly. I mean, it's a huge deal. If people knew this, then I mean, we can definitely help to prevent some of that, I would think.
Exactly. The parasite cleansing would definitely help with it. Just even practitioners getting people to understand that this is taking place, that would help people to understand some of their own emotions. Because how many times have we reacted to our being out of control? And we react by lashing out at others. So as practitioners, we can help our clients see that it's going on. I don't think I have ever, since I've started being a health coach, ever had a month go by that there's not a full moon that every single one of my clients contact me and say there are tremendous issues. Either the sky
Mm.
is falling, or they feel so bad they feel like they have to go to the emergency room, or whatever the issue is, but they feel out of control. A lot of them will talk about their anger issues, and they might have legitimate reason to be angry, but it's not like them to lash out in anger like they do. So that's when they call consistently, is during the full moon, and just begging for help, for relief, because it's so hard on them.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So, like I said, when my client had, I was going through my situation with a client, you gave me peace just knowing it is the parasites. I mean, no one around me could tell that because I have family members that it was like, this is going on and this is going on, and then they're getting mad at me because I'm upset. And again, we're just being honest in here. Sometimes we deal with some stuff behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I mean, I was literally telling this client too the same thing, how people's emotions are affected with toxins and infections. And then I turn around and really needed my own advice, and hearing it from another practitioner that had experience with this like over and over again, not even just once, but many experiences with clients having this situation, just really gave me some peace. And I hope that some people that are listening, whether you're a practitioner or whether you're a family member that's dealing with someone that has a chronic health issue, and they're also kind of having some emotional bouts, and you're taking the back end of it, I hope this encourages you to that it's not necessarily you, and it's not necessarily them. I mean, parasites are not us, right? Right, Maribeth? They're not us.
They're not. They're not. It shows up in our behavior and in our thinking, but it's not us. And as a practitioner, when you receive those phone calls and you are getting the brunt of it, to just remember to put on another hat and just sit there very quietly and let people vent, let them get through it. And the next time you speak to them, chances are they either apologize or they don't even remember what happened, because it's not them. It isn't.
Yeah. And you had told me that one of the ways that you deal with it too is sometimes you just have to get off the phone and tell them that, hey, we're going to talk another time and leave it at that, right?
Exactly. Keep it real simple. Some people become so angry and lash out that it's best to just say, we're going to reschedule this appointment. We're going to do this another time, and give them suggestions on how to get through it the best that you can and they can. But there's no point in a practitioner taking abuse, but lashing back out at them doesn't do any good. Blaming them doesn't do any good. Just very, very gently, just saying, we're going to reschedule this. This is a very difficult time for you. Try to get in the information about it being the full moon, that it's the parasites, it's not them, but we do need to reschedule it. Sometimes it gets to be a little bit too much, and everybody needs a time out.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was something that gave me peace about the whole situation too, is just thinking like, okay, sometimes even with family members, sometimes we just need to take a little break, and we love them, and they are not the parasites, they are not the anger challenge that's happening because of the parasites. And especially if they're on a cleanse, sometimes things get a little worse before they get better, right?
A lot worse. Yeah, yeah. Part of this is learning about your own body. So as people go through the parasite cleanse, they get to learn so much about themselves and how they react. As the parasites are being eliminated, it can get very intense, incredibly intense. And you can feel your body getting out of control. You can feel the emotions getting out of control. And then when you eliminate them, then everything calms down. And then you go through it again and again and again on the cleanse. But it is a very good opportunity to learn about your body. Um, Whether you're a practitioner who's never done this before, using the cell core protocol just really helps you understand not only how a body can respond to it, but it helps you to learn more about your own body so that when your patients are going through it, you understand how intense it can feel. Because eh, I think until somebody has actually gone through it, I'm not sure that they could fully understand that.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? Dr. Todd Watts, the owner of Cellcore, as you mentioned, Cellcore, and we both work for Cellcore now at this point too, because we're definitely some of the top fans probably. I know there's many of them, but we definitely believe in what is going on because we've had personal experiences with it. But Dr. Todd Watts, I mean, people ask him, how do you test for a parasite? How do you know someone has a parasite? Because there's not a lot of tests that are very reliable. Like, you can see some, but it's usually it's already really bad, right? If that's the case. And there's a lot of people with parasites where they might do these expensive stool tests and things like that, and they don't see something. And so he says that, do you have a pulse? And if you have a pulse, you have a parasite. Basically, this is a huge problem. So if you're thinking about lots of your family members or even people that you're working with, if you haven't thought, practitioners, if you haven't thought about parasites, if that hasn't been on your radar, or even if it has been, maybe it hasn't been completely dealt with, then um, obviously a cell core protocol is definitely something to think about. You say, Maribeth, that we cannot fully recover from chronic illness and disease without parasite cleansing, and that we get stuck in the muck and yuck. Right? So can you expand on that, and like how the cell core detox has helped not only you but also your clients as well too?
Yes, for me, I have noticed, because I have been ill for 50 years with Lyme disease and some other issues, that no matter how much mental health support that you might get, you can't become a healthy person if you have parasites. You can't learn all the tricks that there are and become emotionally stable. It doesn't work. So when you work on the parasites and do the parasite cleanse, especially the one through Cellcore, it clears out things so that your mind is clear. You can think more clearly. If you don't do that part of life, then the emotional problems just follow through your life. And I'm sorry, I forgot the other part of the question.
Well, you're a big fan of Cellcore like I am. Obviously, we work for them now. There's a reason. It wasn't just like we decided, hey, it sounds like a great idea. We believe in what we're doing, right? So, maybe you can expand on like, how does parasite cleansing with Cellcore, like how is it different than any other parasite cleansing you've seen?
I have done other parasite cleanses, and although they have gotten some of the stuff out, there is no comparison. To have a protocol that deals with the drainage, that deals with the energy right from the get-go, it gives your body what it needs to completely do a parasite cleanse, to do the full gamut of everything that needs to come out. If that drainage and the energy is not in place, it's just not going to work, especially for those who are chronically ill. We get so sick, we get so many diseases, so many systems are shutting down, that without the additional energy through the mito ATP. If we do not get that additional energy, we don't have the energy to cleanse parasites. And without cleansing the parasites, you really aren't going to get very far in a health journey. So that it just has to be done in the correct order. Cellcore has come up with the perfect protocol because the order is essential.
Mm-hmm.
I remember going through Lyme disease and going through a protocol specifically just for Lyme disease. And it had basically just stirred it up instead of eliminating Lyme disease. So when I decided to use the Cellcore protocol, I was able to work on the drainage, I was able to work on the energy, and then once I started getting out some of the parasites, then I could start working on the Lyme disease and some of the other issues without following through the protocol just step by step like it is designed to. You can't move through to wellness. I've never had any other way of getting to wellness. I've had 50 years of being sick. So this finally was the thing that worked.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad that you mentioned, well, of course, the energy and the drainage. I think practitioners sometimes get at least the drainage part of it. Energy, that's another thing that is something that's so important. I know sometimes it's on people's radars, but it's not always there, although they know that their clients are dealing with energy issues. Talking about supporting it in the beginning and even throughout the whole process is so key. And that mito ATP is like nothing else I've ever seen on the market as well, right? It's this new thing. It goes straight in the mitochondria and it feeds it, and it actually makes your mitochondria multiply. So you build more mitochondria, which are your energy powerhouses. But the next thing you mentioned is that the order of the protocol is so key, like you said. You had mentioned how you were targeting Lyme, which is a smaller bug, right, than most of the parasites. So usually the Lyme is also within the parasites. The parasites, it's like a bug within a bug, right?
Yes.
And so when you said that it's stirred up versus being able to eliminate it, can you expand on what that means?
For people with Lyme disease, there's something called a Herxheimer reaction. And again, it feels like the flu times 100. It also can hit neurologically. For me, it did, where when I went after the Lyme before going after the parasites first, it stirred it up to such a degree that it felt like I was sticking my finger in a light socket, and neurologically, the pain going through my body constantly was very hard to deal with. Had I been working on a parasite cleanse and getting everything to move through my body, then when I was killing off the Lyme, it would not have recycled inside and caused all the problems that it did. So like a Herxheimer reaction is just when you're not draining and you're reacting to all of it being recycled in your body. It's very, very painful. It feels like death at times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So basically, if you're not eliminating, that means it's not coming out of your body. So you might be taking these bugs and different infections or toxins out of its hiding place, and it's not being able to eliminate, which is poop or pee, right?
Right,
to
right.
put it bluntly, if someone doesn't know what elimination is. So you said neurological symptoms are some things that you have experienced with Lyme. What are some other symptoms that, because Lyme seems almost similar to parasites in the symptoms, but can you expand on if there's any types of differences between Lyme and parasites?
Boy, that's a good question. From what I can remember, the Lyme disease, what it did even in my brain, a lot of people have a lot of brain issues
Mhm.
when they have Lyme disease. It gets into the heart, causes a lot of heart issues. The neurological issues are the hardest to deal with. It does literally feel like you're being electrocuted from a light socket. The pain moves around. That's real common in Lyme disease, where pain moves from one day it will be your right shoulder and the next day it will be your left foot. and then the next day it'll be your right hip, and then I mean, it just completely moves around. So, doctors are not believing your story because it's so bizarre. You're in pain, your brain isn't thinking correctly. The heart issues probably were the hardest for me to deal with.
Yeah. When I first started working with Cellcore with you a few weeks ago, actually it's been a couple months now, it seems like. Time flies when you're having fun, right? So I was thinking, because I haven't worked with a lot of people with Lyme at this point yet. Maybe it's just the area of the country I'm at, or maybe it's just because it's hugely underdiagnosed, which I think it's probably both. But I found out recently that 45% of the country, USA, we're talking about, has Lyme, and we don't even necessarily know it. So if you're dealing with some of these symptoms, I mean, it's definitely something to think about, and it needs to be addressed accordingly. Cellcore takes this really seriously. I mean, there's many people that work for the company that have had Lyme, like Maribeth. I mean, the owner, Todd Watts, had it. Some of the people that work for the company, their spouses, many of the other account managers that we've had it. And so it's definitely been so much more loud on my radar. And I've been excited to be using these immune support products that Cellcore has. And you've been using those as well too, right?
Yes, I did go through the full protocol first instead of just jumping into their Lyme specific ones. Yes, the IS Bore, the IS Bard, I've been using. Oh, and they came out recently with the IS Boost. I have used all of them and they work. But I did do the other part of the protocol first. That's just a really big thing, because whether
Right.
you think that you have done enough drainage, whether you think that you have done enough cleansing, chances are, if you've not done this one to this degree, chances are you've not done enough. And if you just start immediately on the IS products, the immune support products, then usually it's too much at first.
Okay. So even around the full moon, Lyme could be stirred up as well too, right?
Absolutely. Looking backwards on the last 50 years, I can look backwards and I can clearly see that during the full moon, just Lyme itself got stirred up more. Absolutely.
Yeah. You told me some incredible things about your healing journey, and I just am so amazed at, how you just kept pressing on. I was talking to another practitioner yesterday, and she was just like, we were talking about autism. Her kid was diagnosed years ago with autism, and I was asking about her child, and she was saying that he's doing great right now, and she is just amazed, and how she just wishes that people wouldn't give up. And it just really hit me, because it's so easy to, when you're dealing with health issues like you have dealt with, and with, I know people have dealt with, our clients, and to feel like so defeated in the situation. And you spent so much money, you've done all these different supplements. If you tried holistic, you may have brought products of different types of sorts and saunas and XYZ. And it's like seeing all these different practitioners. I mean, can be a very, very expensive bill at the end of the day. And then you just feel like, have I even got anywhere? I mean, Cellcore, there's no like end all be all for everything. Even with Cellcore, we're ebbing and flowing most of the time, any practitioner that's using it, but it's a good template, a baseline to start out with, and then just work, within each, with each client where they're at. And like you said, the order of it is important. And the fact that it's dealing with all these different issues is also very important, because what I've seen is that people might think, oh, it's all parasites, and they don't realize, oh, well, there's a heavy metal connection, or there's a Lyme connection, or there's a, emotional and spiritual, which are on a whole different level from, like, yes, the parasites affect our emotions and our spirit health, right? But you are also a fan of making sure that people understand how what we put in our mind and what we meditate on also make a difference on how we're also reacting, like, to a protocol. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, if you take the current situation with the pandemic, the clients that I have, the people that I talk to during the day, the ones who are watching the news nonstop are the ones who are the most upset, the ones who are having the hardest time seeing any hope. So sometimes we have to separate ourselves from the constant onslaught of what all the opinions are, about what all the problems are, and look towards other things. For myself, I every single morning get up and I read scripture every single morning. That helps me connect to God. It helps me connect to something that's much larger than myself. There's no way in the world I could begin to understand coronavirus, the pandemic. I can't even understand people or my own life, much less something like that. So just getting in touch with a higher power, I think, is very, very important. It helps you get outside of yourself. It helps you see hope. All those years that I was so sick, although there was not a pandemic at the time, if I did not have a sense of God and have a sense of hope, even though I can't see it right in front of me, I would have given up. I would have easily given up. And I understand why people give up, and I understand why people don't see hope, because they can't see it right in front of them. But persevering through it, it's not always easy. It's almost always very, very difficult. But that will to live and just keep putting one foot in front of the other, I just think is essential. I understand how hard it is, and I understand the frustrations. I understand the loss. It's a time when we lose a lot of relationships because people don't understand the physical aspect of the challenge. So there's a financial loss, there's relationships that are lost, our bodies completely change. That's a huge struggle. Just vanity issues are a huge struggle. Everything just kind of gets turned upside down. So having a will to live is what gets us through the next day and the next day and the following day. So if you don't have somebody who can help you with that, that's where, for me, just knowing a higher power, knowing who God is, and reading scripture helps me to see hope, and it helps me to see that there's something bigger than I am who is in charge of this.
Wow. So basically, knowing God and being a Christian really has given you the faith to keep going. And you would say it's giving you the will to live, right?
Absolutely. Because on a physical level, there's no reason why I should have survived. So on a physical level, if it is my time to go, then so be it. I am okay with that. But until that happens, I believe it's my responsibility to put one foot in front of the other on faith. And God will take care of whatever it is that is going to happen next. But it is my responsibility to see hope, to put that one foot in front of the other, and to take action. A lot of people have a real hard time with this because it feels like everything's coming at you, everything's going wrong. Your health is falling apart, your finances are falling apart, your relationships are falling apart, and it becomes so heavy and so overwhelming that a lot of people just give up. And that is one thing that I didn't do. I just kept fighting. Did not always make the right choices, but I kept on fighting for my life. And I don't have the same brain capacity that I used to, don't look the same, don't have the same finances, don't have the same relationships. But God has a plan for my life. And if I walk it out, then I get to see what that plan is. For me, it's worth doing.
Yeah, I just love your perseverance. 50 years is a long time to be persevering. And the good news is that we have found solutions that can really speed this process up, right?
Absolutely. I wish that this was around 50 years ago when I was a child and needed it back then. It would not have caused as much damage. Life would not have been as difficult. But that's part of my story. And that's part of why it's okay that that happened to me, so that hopefully the more I tell that story, the more people will realize that there are solutions, so that children don't have to suffer the same as I did. Adults don't have to suffer the same. You just don't, because there are now products, there's protocols, there's doctors who understand how to get people through this much
Right.
easier.
Right, right. And that's why, even though we have this crazy pandemic situation going on here, we're just excited because we feel like there's solutions out there. And like you said, Cellcore has really done the nitty gritty. I mean, the business is only a couple years old, but the brains behind it, is many, many, many years. I mean, and there's many brains coming together, forming this thing and refining all the products, all the protocol, how we approach our clients. I mean, if you're a practitioner, I mean, there's a practitioner group that we're all in, and Maribeth actually is very active in it, which I'm very grateful for, because her wisdom is very, it's incredible. I've personally been able to talk to her on the side as well, and she's been able to coach me through some of the new things that I'm learning and dealing with certain clients, but even that group, it's incredible, the brains that are in there. And so if you're not carrying Cellcore and you're a practitioner, it's definitely something to consider. Just even if you don't even use the products, but like you are surrounded by these people, it's incredible. Right? Even when we went to Eco, oh, you wouldn't go to Eco. Well, you'll get to go to the next Eco.
Right. I went to the first one. You went
I
to the second
did.
one. We're both going to be at the third one.
Okay, so you did go to the first one. I mean, it's magical going to that type of thing, right? Where there's all these people that are really in it to help people get well. And we're just excited because there's things out there that can really do the job. And I'm sorry, go on.
Science. The scientists also show up, and they do a lot of explaining on a scientific level that is way above my head. But because when they present and they explain things, even though it's above my head, I get little tidbits that I do understand. And most of the practitioners that show up there are just brilliant. So they're understanding that stuff, a lot better than I am. But those scientists are pretty cool that they show up and they help explain things.
Yeah, I agree. I wish that I could understand it the way they did. And even the owners of the company, probably, some of them probably, even though they're genius, some of them probably don't even understand where those scientists are something else with the chemistry and everything they know. But you're right. Like getting those little tidbits of like, how does this mito ATP even work? Things like that. Like, why are we using this? How does this whole thing play a role? Even the synergy with all the herbs in each product makes a huge difference on why they work as well. So anyways, Maribeth, I know we can talk for days, and this whole parasite topic is something that most of my followers probably know by now. I like to talk about and making sure we're eliminating properly and all that. I'm glad that we were able to expand today on how the emotional component is affected as well when we have these parasites. Do you have any other words of encouragements for the listeners, whether they're a practitioner or a family or friend that's dealing with someone they love that has this type of issue, even if it's not diagnosed?
Exactly. A lot of times things are not diagnosed, and we don't need to put a label on everything to start solving the issues. Just have patience with other people. Show each other kindness. It goes a long way. People are going to get upset. People are going to have issues. Just keep showing kindness. And when you yourself get tapped out, just bow out for the moment and start at it the next day. And encourage people. Nowadays, we don't have enough people encouraging other people to just take the next step, take baby steps. It doesn't have to be huge mountains every day. It can just be baby steps. So be kind and take baby steps.
Yeah. I definitely am a fan with protocols where we start ramping it up eventually, but in the beginning, especially if someone's very sensitive, we have to take baby steps. Otherwise, you can get discouraged real quickly if you're stirring the mud up, like you said, stirring the muck and the yuck up, and you're not getting it out properly. So do it. Do your protocol phase by phase, and and make sure that you're getting things out properly, so that you're not being discouraged if you don't feel bad during a situation like this. And then when it's time to start running with your protocol or whatever it is that you're doing with your health and wellness, then it's time. We can start ramping it up and moving things out in a much faster way. But even a little bit goes a long way sometimes when people start. And so, one thing that I wanted to mention too is with the encouragement is, one thing that helps me now that I've had this conversation with you is just always reminding myself if people are acting up in a bad way, it's the bugs. I always go back to that. And I can't tell you how much peace that gives me when I'm not getting mad at the person and I'm just letting it be what it is. There's the parasites. And I don't need to know if they had a test that says parasites, like you said, because a lot of it is under, we don't even diagnose it here, but it's under tested, I should say. So a lot of it is under tested, and there's not really the best test out there, like we mentioned. People have no idea, but it's a huge problem. And even some of the things I used to do in my office would show it that normally lab tests don't show it. And so I would see it all the time in people's live blood analysis. So it's a huge problem. So just blame the bugs. Blame the bugs, and you'll be able to forgive that person a lot more when they're lashing out on you, whether it's your husband, your client, your aunt, your uncle, your child. Children have these things too, and they're not exempt just because they're little people. They need to have healthy bodies as well. So all that sugar and everything that we think we can give kids because they're kids, it's not true. They need healthy, nutritious diets, and they need to be dewormed like we need to be. So, Maribeth, can you tell us where the listeners can find you?
I have a website called amazingwholeness.com. That is probably the best place to find me.
So that's where you put your blogs, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so Maribeth is a fabulous writer, and she writes all kinds of blogs related to this topic. So if you learn good by reading, I highly suggest that you definitely check that out. And even if you just want to learn in general, definitely check that out. She posts a lot of good information there. So is there any last words that you would like to give?
Just keep being kind to each other. Jacqueline has been so kind to me. It is unbelievable. So we just don't always know what's going on with people. Just be kind to one another. It goes so far.
All right. We'll leave on that note. So thank you, listeners, for watching today. We are going to continue this coronavirus series. I hope it doesn't have to be too long, but I do want to keep putting little nuggets out every couple of days so that you guys stay encouraged and you get to know how to deal with these emotional and physical issues that we are all up against today. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Maribeth, for joining us, and we will continue to tune in. Have a nice and blessed day. My Super Immunity Boost Juice Guide is now available on thewellnesstrinity.com. You'll learn how to grow broccoli microgreens, the ingredients I put in my green juice, and super nutritious supplements you can add to enhance your immune system. Again, go to thewellnesstrinity.com and you'll receive your free Super Immunity Boost Juice Guide.
Thank you for listening to the Wellness Trinity podcast. Be sure to subscribe for more wellness tips to help you achieve optimal health. Don't forget to rate and review so we can continue to bring you the best content. See you on the next episode.